John Zerr. I use pen name JJ Zerr. I started writing in 2008 on January the 2nd. That was when I decided to finally get into the writing business. The people who would benefit most from my books, I think, varies from book to book, because I've tried to write in different genres. Vietnam was a major sticking point in my mind and in my soul, and that's really what started me writing. If you're interested in Civil War history, I've done 2 books in that particular genre. I did a World War II story just because I wanted to do a World War II story, and I wrote a ghost story, The Ghost of Chateau du Chasse. There's romance in there, although I wouldn't characterize it as any of them as romance books per se, but there is romance. My inspiration to become a writer, I trace back to when I was 5 years old. I used to follow the funnies, particular comic strips and the funny papers, and some of them, they were a story. And if you followed them over a month, you would get a beginning and you would get an end. So I talked to my mom, and she bought me a scrapbook, and we would cut out the strips I was following and paste them in the scrapbook. And so at the end of the month, I had a whole story. I guess I always had a book. I was paging through, even if I couldn't read, I looked at the pictures. I've had it from the get-go, and it hasn't diminished. And I mean, right now, I can't not write. I just can't. My thought process when I wrote the first book, I picked an ending, and I had studied a few things about people who outline step by step. I always thought I absolutely had to know where I was going before I could start getting there. So a lot of writing, a lot of rewriting, and it took 3 years to do that first book. By the time I did my second book, I was able to go through that process with so much less anguish over details and things. I also joined a writer's critique group, which I am still a member of. And there's most of the time, there's like a dozen of us there, and you get a dozen different readers' inputs, and it is worth its weight in gold to me. I love these people. We call ourselves a coffee and critique group. What life-changing messages from the pages of my book? I think there are some in there. In a couple of the Vietnam books, the character John Zachary is dealing with things that happened to him that he did, and it surprised the heck out of him that he had it in him. Will it help people deal with PTSD? I have no idea, but writing it helped me. And if it helped somebody else, well, then it was worth going through all the trouble of writing it and trying as best I could to get it as right and good as I could make it. How crucial is the physical book signing? I think it's an essential part of it. This morning, I had a conversation with a woman and her 2 kids, and it turns out they were practically neighbors. They're from Arkansas, Missouri. I'm from Missouri. I had another conversation with a retired Navy man married to a retired Air Force person. Enjoyed the heck out of that. I mean, and these little connections are, to me, worth coming out here, whether it sells a book or not. I get pumped talking to people like this, and to have these coincidences, happenstances of fate, whatever it is, brings, your neighbor together with you here in Los Angeles, and we would have never met any other way. I mean, I'm not big time into marketing, but this ability to talk to people here at the book fair, a couple of these encounters make the trip worthwhile all by themselves. Yeah, I like these book signings where you get to have face-to-face encounters. And I mean, some days I might get a paragraph written, and another day I could get a whole blinking 10-page chapter done. It just depends on how it all goes. And the dream I have is that someday I may be recognized and it won't bother me a bit if it's posthumous.